Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something I think anyone who's ever, tried to get a design made will recognize. Apparel manufacturing. And that absolute nightmare, the ambiguous seam.
Oh, absolutely. You know the feeling. You've got this perfect visual idea, maybe a really specific detail.
Yeah, the vision is crystal clear in your head.
Exactly. And you wait weeks, maybe longer for that first prototype. It lands on your desk.
And boom, instantly you see it. It's wrong. The construction detail is just off.
It's the worst. And often it traces back to just one vague line in the tech pack, something that sounded fine, like, I don't know, 2-centimeter hem with tape.
Right. Simple enough.
But the factory just assumed a certain way to do it, and that one assumption completely tanks the drape or the quality feel or just the whole look of the piece.
So our mission today, looking at the material we have here, is to really explore the ABC seams coding system. They call it ASCS. It was literally created to kill this exact problem, this fuzzy, ambiguous visual communication in tech packs.
And the core idea from the system's founder wasn't about blaming the factory's skill or saying the fabric was wrong or even the pattern. Nope.
It was the instruction itself.
Precisely, that initial poorly explained detail. If it's open to interpretation even a little bit,
Failure waiting to happen.
you got it. It basically guarantees problems before a single stitch is sewn, and the source material really hammers home the waste involved.
Yeah, think about it. Needing, say, 4 prototypes to get what you really should have gotten into.
You've just doubled your lead time, burned through budget, team energy. It's incredibly inefficient. The solution has to be some kind of universal language, right? One that just cuts out the ambiguity from the very start.
Okay, so let's dig into those specific instructions. The ones causing this constant headache globally, even in really high-end brands where you'd think precision is everything.
Well, that's what's so interesting. These vague terms are everywhere. Things like, just sew with overlock.
But what's actually missing there? What does the factory really need to know?
That's the crux of it. These are like shortcuts to failure because they stop short of describing the critical finish. A manufacturer sees piped seam, or even something seemingly basic, like basic seam with top stitch. And honestly, they might have 3, 4, maybe 5 different ways they could construct that and all technically fit the description.
Oh, yeah.
And that ambiguity, that's where the quality just dies on the table.
So it's like telling a builder, build me a wall, maybe showing them a picture,
Yeah.
but not specifying if it needs studs, insulation, what kind of drywall. You just hope they guess right.
That is a perfect analogy. You need the blueprint, not just a vague description. The factory needs, well, several things clarified immediately that those vague notes just ignore.
Like what specifically?
Okay, so what kind of overlock stitch? Is
Yeah.
it 3-thread, 4 threads? What kind of finishing? Is it flat? Is it bound? Is it left exposed? How is the actual seam structured inside? How are the layers put together?
Right, the internal architecture.
Exactly. And if you're adding something extra like tape or elastic, is that meant to be flat against the fabric? Visible maybe? Or totally enclosed, hidden inside the seam?
So it sounds like garment construction needs to shift away from just being, a shopping list of stitch types and become more like a precise, universally understood data set for how that seam should actually be.
That's it exactly. Without that universal clarity, you get endless back and forth emails, confusion across different factories or countries.
And the quality instantly suffers.
It forces the factory to guess. And guessing is just the enemy of efficient quality production.
Okay, this is where the story gets really interesting, I think. Because this system wasn't cooked up in a lab somewhere, right? It came from decades of actual hands-on frustration.
Yeah, the source material introduces Bellucci, the founder of ABC Seams, and she spent, over 20 years in product development?
Yeah, working for all sorts of companies. We're talking big luxury names like Burberry.
Wow, Burberry. Okay.
All the way to high-volume fast fashion and smaller independent labels, too.
Hold on, so someone who worked at both Burberry and fast fashion saw the exact same fundamental communication problem. That's actually kind of surprising.
Right, you'd think a luxury house obsessed with detail would have this nailed.
So why were they still struggling with describing a seam correctly?
Well, the source suggests it wasn't necessarily bad quality control at the factory. It was more about inconsistent documentation.
Okay.
Luxury production often relies on these, highly skilled factories that have worked with the brand for years. They have this deep, unspoken knowledge. They just know what the brand usually wants.
So it's based on assumption and history, tacit knowledge.
Exactly. But what happens when production moves? Or when they try a new complex design, maybe using a high-quality detail in a novel way?
That assumption breaks down.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's what Blucci noticed.
Yeah.
Basic stuff. Usually okay. But the moment you got into complex garments, high-quality pieces, trendy items, anything needing really specific, precise construction,
The details started to fall apart.
yeah, they were either executed poorly or just done generically,
Mm.
which, instantly strips away the whole point of the design detail.
So her big realization was that the standard way of communicating, just listing stitches and measurements, was fundamentally broken.
Right. It wasn't enough.
The system had to move beyond just telling the factory how to sew the steps. The ASCS system starts from the designer's perspective, focusing on the end result.
The outcome.
Yes, the core idea is knowing how you want that seam to look in the finished garment, inside and out. You don't need to be a sewing machine expert yourself.
Which most designers aren't, really.
Exactly. You just need to be able to specify the outcome clearly and precisely, which honestly is the designer's job anyway.
That's a really key shift in thinking. Start with the finished look, the final state, not the step-by-step sewing instructions.
And that new approach, that focus on the outcome, led directly to the 3 core principles of AS: clarity, precision, and simplicity. The founders figured out that adding more complexity to the tech pack wasn't the answer. The goal was to make the whole process easier, smarter, both for the factory floor and, the design studio.
Okay, that sounds logical. Clarity, precision, simplicity. But I have to ask, doesn't this just shift the work? If I'm a designer, and now I need to create like a perfect diagram for every single seam,
Yeah.
isn't that just adding more time and complexity to my job?
That's a really fair question. And if you thought of it as like a brand new drawing task for every seam, then yeah, maybe. But that's not really how it's set up to work.
Okay.
The simplicity comes from the standardization. You're not drawing from scratch each time. You're selecting and specifying from a pre-existing standardized library. ASCS provides the precise blueprint.
Ah, okay. So it's more like picking from a menu of predefined illustrated options.
Kind of, yeah, but a very precise menu. So how does that precision actually work? What makes it different?
Yeah, what does an ASCS spec look like compared to just overlock?
The visual focus is key. Each seam type in the system comes with a really realistic cross-section diagram. And crucially, it shows the finished structure.
Not the steps to get there.
Exactly. It shows the layers of fabric, how they're finished, how they relate to each other. It's the non-negotiable standard for the final result.
Okay, I get the visual part. What about the code itself? How do they avoid just creating another set of confusing abbreviations?
Well, they seem to have built a systematic coding structure.
That's powerful. It moves it from just descriptive words to actual structured data,
Exactly right. And the whole library is organized logically, too.
making it easier to find what you need.
Yeah, it makes it intuitive for a designer who's thinking about a certain look or effect, not just trying to remember a stitch name. And the upshot is everyone, the designer, the pattern maker, the QC person, is looking at the exact same visual blueprint and code.
So no more arguments about whether top stitch meant this kind or that kind.
Precisely. That shared language just cuts through the ambiguity instantly.
Okay, but when you talk about standardizing something for a whole industry, accessibility becomes really important, doesn't it? Is this ASCS thing only for huge companies with massive budgets? Or can smaller players actually use it?
No, it seems designed to be a bit of an equalizer, actually, which is critical. For example, they have this seam gallery, and these apparently give free access to over 100 seam illustrations. And they're not locked away in some proprietary software. They're just JPG files.
Seriously, just image files.
Yeah, ready to use. You can literally just drag and drop them into whatever tech pack software or spreadsheet you're already using.
Wow, okay, that is huge for accessibility. I mean, for students learning this stuff or for small independent brands maybe working out of their living room. So this kind of democratizes that level of precision in documentation.
That's exactly the word. It lowers the barrier to entry for creating professional, clear tech packs. And they also offer, affordable tools tailored for students and smaller brands too.
And practically speaking, how does it fit into the workflow?
Super easily, it sounds like. Because they're just images and codes, you can use them anywhere. In the main tech pack, sure, but also in quality control manuals, even just in emails back and forth with the factory. If you can attach a picture, you can use an ASCS diagram.
Makes sense. What about staying relevant? New fabrics, new machines, new techniques pop up all the time. Can the system keep up without becoming outdated quickly?
That's a good point. But the flexibility seems built in because the codes describe the outcome, the final structure, not necessarily the specific machine that made it.
Ah, okay. So it's machine agnostic in a way.
Pretty much. It's designed to be adaptive. The coding structure itself is apparently robust enough to add new constructions as they emerge. You just define the new structure, give it a code, add the diagram.
Got it.
It can handle different materials, different types of garments. The visual clarity is the constant, reliable part.
So if we kind of zoom out from the seams themselves, what are the real, tangible, day-to-day benefits for a team using a system like ASCS? We know it reduces stress, but what does that actually look like, say, on the bottom line?
Well, it translates directly into efficiency you can actually measure. The number one benefit is speed, getting samples made right the first time.
Because the instructions were clear from the start.
Exactly. Those decisions about how to construct something are locked down, clear, and confident from day one. You basically eliminate or drastically reduce those frustrating rounds of failed prototypes.
Right. Less wasted effort, fewer delays.
Significantly fewer delays, which means the team works better, less stressfully.
So ASCS isn't just about making things look nicer, it's a direct hit on lead time reduction. That's where the real financial impact comes in, isn't it?
That's the leverage. And beyond time and money, the final garment actually reflects the brand's original vision. You avoid those generic, disappointing executions that just dilute the brand.
It forces clarity earlier in the process.
Mm-hmm. So the system isn't just a library of codes and pictures, it's really a framework for designing and developing products way more efficiently. It empowers designers, developers, even students to communicate their ideas with, like, surgical precision.
Requiring zero translation.
Or guesswork. Zero guesswork at the factory.
Which really brings us back to where we started, solving this seemingly small technical detail. The ambiguity of the seam actually unlocks massive efficiencies across the entire product creation process.
Yeah, it's not just a small detail when you look at the knock-on effects.
Better quality, sure, but maybe more importantly, that dramatic reduction in lead time and cost by just getting it right sooner, avoiding those painful, expensive prototyping mistakes.
In this whole approach, the system, it's really rooted in a core belief, isn't it? The belief that a garment doesn't truly start being made at the factory.
It starts earlier.
Much earlier. It starts with a clear idea and an absolute commitment to executing that idea properly. So the efficiency of the entire production chain, it really hinges on how perfectly and how precisely that initial design idea gets translated. So maybe the question for you listening right now is this. What crucial idea, what key detail in your current project are you maybe leaving just a little bit open to interpretation?
Because that's the danger zone.
That's exactly where your next potential failure lies, or where your next big efficiency gain could be found, just by adding clarity.